Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today's video will be a review on Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Now that all 8 episodes of the season have officially come out, there's no time like the present to finally cover this season of Marvel television. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything that has transpired this season, I want to at least cover a portion of this review in a non-spoiler manner for those who have yet seen this season of Daredevil. But later on into the review, I will put a spoiler warning for when we go deeper into the details of the events of this season. First and foremost, this season of Born Again really feels the closest to the Netflix tone and style in a way that isn't just catering to fans of the show whilst doing its own original thing. I myself really love the Netflix era of Daredevil as they've managed to maintain a level of consistency throughout the show's tenure. Now with Disney and Marvel taking over, there was certainly some worry initially as the prior version of Born Again was going to have a different cast and story altogether. The first season of Born Again isn't as solid as the prior Netflix seasons of the show, as the first season of Born Again was combining the old creative team's work mixed with the new and current creative team, which are that of directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, as well as writer Dario Scardapane. I felt as though the first season of Born Again really only captivated me during the later moments of the show, as you can feel how the earlier episodes wanted to distance itself from the Netflix lore and characters that we've come to grown accustomed to, which is why there was more new characters, even though they weren't as captivating as the cast that had come before. This season of Born Again being able to utilize both its new and old cast of characters and making them all captivating and really interesting this time around was a really promising sign for me as a viewer. Sure, there are the familiar cast members we know like Karen Page, Jessica Jones, Bullseye, and of course Daredevil and Kingpin, who have always been consistently great performances. It was the newer cast of characters like Cherry, Christian McDuffie, Daniel Blake, Heather Glenn, and even characters like BB Urich and Buck Cashman that I was really surprised with how well they were integrated into this season's narrative while also having their own personal journeys as well. It really feels as though the material this time around was really strong. One thing to note is that Matthew Lillard is in this season of Born Again, and I really enjoyed his character a lot. I was hoping to see more of him, but I quite enjoyed the moments that he showed up in, as it was to help show us, the audience, who he is amongst the chaos of the story. And I really liked the energy he brought into the show as a character who's playing close to the vest and not revealing too much about who he is and what he does, but still being able to operate with a level of authority. Additionally, this season of Born Again is really about this tug of war for control over New York City. Now with Fisk becoming mayor, he gets to enact whatever policies he deems worthy under the guise of wanting to do what is best for the city that he loves. A lot of people have also stated how this season Daredevil has felt really close and personal to real world events as we see in this show, such as the AVTF task force, known as the Anti-Vigilante Task Force, that go around enacting violence towards innocent civilians, similar to, if not exactly like how ICE agents are acting in the US currently, how they are wrongfully arresting and locking away people. And we see that happen in this show as we see Fisk and his task force unlawfully arrest people who are deemed by corrupt court officials as vigilantes and are locked in cages. So on one end, we see Fisk in office fighting to maintain control that he has put forth from within and with enough manpower to back him up, while also trying to satisfy his ever-growing hunger for said control. While on the other end, we have Daredevil fighting on the ground level to dismantle and tear down Fisk's empire and expose him for the fraud that he is. But it's not just Daredevil, but it's the rest of his allies that aid in his fight to topple Fisk. More importantly, this season finally has Daredevil sporting the iconic Double D logo from the comics. In this season, Daredevil sports an all-black costume with the red logo coming through. Not only is this just a full circle moment for the character as his costume has evolved throughout the years, but the logo acts as a symbol and represents the rebellion Daredevil and his allies are leading against the Kingpin. What makes this fight between both sides really riveting is seeing the struggle between both parties and how they respond to each other's attacks. It is a constant violent cycle between Fisk and Daredevil as they are trying to bring each other down to the point where they leave chaos in the wake of their actions. Speaking of action, this season is no exception, and Philip Silvera, who was a stunt coordinator during the Netflix era of Daredevil, serves as the stunt coordinator for both seasons of Born Again. I really love the action this season a lot, as there's a lot more dynamic fighting and camera movement taking place. We see Daredevil utilizing his billy club more, which further enhances the hand-to-hand combat we see on display. There's also a few hallway style fight sequences this season that were also super amazing and bloody as well. More than the action and the spectacle was seeing characters really have those personal moments and one-on-one conversations with each other, whether it was on Matt or Fisk's side of things. We also get to see these characters really pose questions of morality and doing the right thing, which I believe makes Daredevil such an interesting watch. It's those deep and thought-provoking conversations we see transpire. To be honest, the most emotional and memorable scenes from Daredevil come from characters having strong and heartfelt dialogue with one another, whether it's emotional or triumphant. Especially with a character like Matt Murdock, who is a Catholic man and lawyer by day, but dresses up as a vigilante at night in the form of a devil costume. It's things like this that make Daredevil so nuanced in what the show is tackling, and the question this season poses is what makes a vigilante who they are. Those questions, conversations, and even actions of good and evil remain ever so present in this season of Born Again. Now we can transition into more of the spoiler talk and really go over the series of events that have taken place. For the bulk of the show, we see Matt as Daredevil. Since last season, his apartment had been blown up by the AVTF officers as they were sent to kill him, which led to Punisher and Daredevil taking out all the officers and narrowly escaping. They are then rescued by Karen Page. This is then where we pick up the opening of the first episode, where we see Daredevil as he's sneaking onto the Northern Star ship. We get to see him operate in the shadows whilst the rest of the team are dismantling Fisk, like Karen going out and getting all sorts of info from contacts about Fisk's criminal activities. Jessica Jones even being mentioned from the first episode and being present later on. We even get Angela Del Toro in this season again, who was the niece of Hector Ayala, the White Tiger, who died at the hands of Cole North. She now takes over the mantle of White Tiger, but she also shows us her perspective of the AVTF as they unlawfully arrest her aunt and harm her friends, which leads her to join Matt's resistance group. She even gets some action in the finale in the hallway, as we can see her jumping and clawing at people as the White Tiger. We even have Krysten McDuffie, who is Matt's new law firm partner, who's trying to handle a massive wave of cases in the wake of large AVTF activity. We also get to see from her perspective how much power Fisk has, even in court, deems her client Jock Duquesne, aka the Swordsman, as a vigilante, played by Tony Dalton. And from there, it's through Daredevil meeting and learning the ins and outs of McDuffie going to the safe house where Fisk keeps all the innocent people locked in cages that leads to the amazing action sequence of Daredevil going in and fighting all the AVTF officers with a little assistance from Swordsman himself. Additionally, the Newton Brothers music throughout this sequence and especially throughout this season of television was really amazing. So shout out to the Newton Brothers for their amazing work on the soundtrack for Born Again Season 2. Additionally, Bullseye is in this season as well, and he is really great. To circle back to the first episode a little bit, AVTF officers invade Cherry's home and they start to beat him to the point where he's about to have a heart attack. And Matt is trying to defend off all these AVTF officers, but him hearing the heart attack, reminding him of how Foggy was dying, throws him off his game, and it makes him vulnerable to the point where all the officers have him pinned down and they take off his mask. And it is like a shocking moment because you think, holy hell, how do you come back from this? All the officers are killed in one fell swoop, and a knife falls down and it reads "You're welcome" with a bullseye symbol. So he's established his presence and he's made himself known. We see him go on this quote-unquote redemption arc of sorts. Of course, it's not a traditional redemption arc because this dude is still insane in the head and is still ricocheting knives and killing people. In the opening of episode 4, we get to see how he's trying to live a normal life while also having those psychotic tendencies and delusional thoughts. It leads to him calling in the AVTF officers to his location, and he proceeds to kill each and every one of them in the name of being a good guy. It's really fun stuff, and I especially like the Agent of Chaos kind of vibe they given for this character. Ultimately, it leads to the big crescendo and midpoint of this season when Bullseye attempts to assassinate Vanessa Fisk, but Kingpin is able to avert the glass from hitting her. During this, Bullseye is also wounded as he's shot by Vanessa, and Daredevil comes in the nick of time, saving Dex as the both of them run off. However, some of the glass ricochets and hits Vanessa in the head, leaving her fatally wounded. As we get to episode 5, as we see these flashbacks help inform but also show where our characters are headed now. In terms of Fisk and Vanessa, we see flashbacks to their respective lives that ultimately pave the way for them to come together. Whereas on the other side, we see Matt and Foggy question right or wrong in helping free a client from the past who knew Foggy, and how Matt learns to see the good in others even despite what they've done before. Ultimately, it's these flashbacks that are in service for the characters, as we see in present day Matt trying to hold on to and rescue Bullseye as more AVTF officers are close on their tail. Initially, Matt wants to leave Dex behind as he's responsible for killing people like Father Lantom, Agent Nadim, and of course Foggy Nelson. However, it's that flashback that helps reinform Matt to do the right thing, which leads him to bringing back Bullseye to Frank's hideout, with Karen not being fully on board with this. On the other hand, we see Fisk at his most vulnerable as he's seeing Vanessa close to the brink of death. For a moment, all isn't lost for Fisk. When Vanessa shows up, she may still have life left in her, and she asks Fisk to recount the story of how they both met. Ultimately, it leads to her going into critical condition and dying on the hospital bed. For me, this mirrors the death of Foggy, as both of our leads have lost the people that have meant the most to them. And even on the Daredevil podcast, writer Dario Scardapane mentions this as well.
There were 2 big deaths this season.
Yes. So the Vanessa one, that was kind of the cost of Foggy.
Exactly.
Like that parallel stuff when we actually started talking about it in season 1.
Yeah.
So we knew that each of them
it was kind of
something.
inevitable, because you had to bring Matt and Fisk to the same emotional place or back at that table by the end of the season.
Their fight had to cost.
In terms of the Fisk end of things, we see the relationship between Buck Cashman, Fisk's right-hand man, and Daniel Blake form, which is an oddly interesting pairing. But when things hit the fan and Daniel Blake realizes he's in too deep, he starts to reconsider his position, and even Buck himself, who has found an ally in Daniel Blake, gives him the hard task of asking Daniel to kill his friend B.B. Urich, who's secretly aiding Daredevil in helping spread the news about Wilson Fisk's crimes. What really sucks is seeing the tragic end of Daniel as he ends up letting B.B. go free before Buck shows up and he kills him. It's so brutal and sad for both Daniel and Buck, as we see how the two of them have formed this camaraderie, only for Buck to have to make the tough call and kill the only friend he had. We also get to see Heather Glenn, who in this season is working for Wilson Fisk as the Commissioner of Mental Health under his administration. But we are also starting to see how the Muse incident from last season has had an effect on her, where she starts to slip away as we see Muse haunt her. We even see that although she tries to suppress it, her trauma continues to take a hold of her to the point where she's willing to misdiagnose people like Swordsman, and even her confrontation/interview with Karen Page in episode 7. I really wanted to not hate Heather throughout this season because I understand where she's coming from, and also because she's not fully recovered. But there would be moments, especially during her and Karen's confrontation, where she just straight up is an asshole that made me despise her completely. But I really did enjoy the scene between these two women, as they are both a part of Matt's life, as one is his current lover and the other is his ex. So getting to see these two try and take control and trying to outwit one another was so tense yet thrilling to see. So it's no surprise, but also spoilers for the future of Daredevil Born Again Season 3, since filming for that has been going on. But there are photos of Lady Muse, which everyone speculated that Heather was going to transition towards. We even end this season on with her putting on the mask and accepting this inevitability of her journey. Speaking of Karen Page, I really liked her role in this story. She acts as Matt's rock, and we even see her take charge and lead when even Matt himself isn't quite up to the task. I really love the scenes between the two of them when they get to express their differences in ideologies and methods. When she mentions taking an approach similar to that of Frank Castle, we see this cause friction between the pair, as they have both been there for each other at their lowest to not stoop that low, especially when Karen Page has had a tragic life story of her own too. Later on in this season, when Bullseye is brought into their hideout, we see how Karen isn't at all fond of the idea that Bullseye is amongst them, and even attempts to try and kill him, only for Matt to stop that from happening. It leads to Karen erupting on Matt, but you can't help but understand her point of view, as Foggy wasn't just someone Matt had lost, but Foggy was a friend they both lost too, especially the death of Father Lantom, as Father Lantom sacrificed himself so that Karen wouldn't die. So when Matt is letting Bullseye live while Karen believes he should die, this definitely sparks outrage between the pair. Then transition during the riots at Fisk's office, she telecasts all the testimonies of all the victims that had been locked up by Fisk, and even when the riots intensify as Officer Powell, the a-hole of this whole series, kills Officer Saunders, which incites a massive clash between the protesters and the AVTF officers. It's during that chaos where we see Karen get identified by him, and she then gets locked up, where she will then be later on taken into court for aiding and abetting Daredevil. During this, we have Daredevil confronting Fisk and making a deal that they both leave New York all behind, as their violence and hatred towards each other will never not end, only for the both of them to end up fighting each other anyways. But Daredevil leaves Fisk and doesn't choose to kill him. We are then brought into the penultimate and finale episode of this season that is centered around the trial of Karen Page. Before we go to the court case, we get the return of Brett Mahoney as he temporarily frees Karen from her cell to talk with Daredevil about their next step and how they're going to proceed in this court case, and how they may have to win with other methods that don't end up with killing Fisk. So we come to the court, and it initially appears as though McDuffie will solely represent for the defense of Karen Page, until she brings up to the stand that she will also have her co-counsel, and it's none other than Matt Murdock, as he finally comes back to the public eye and represents Karen Page. Because earlier in the season, Fisk tries to do some 4D chess where he announces Matt Murdock is a hero that needs to be taken home, so Matt can be out and about, because they're both hunting him as Daredevil, but now with Fisk outing him as a hero, everybody will be looking for him. So Daredevil is just cornered on all fronts, but Matt is using this to his advantage for this court case. We see the court case working in the favor of the good guys. It is when the trial intensifies and video evidence of the first mate's testimony is presented. Though it won't suffice, as we now know the first mate is dead, it leads to no other choice but for Matt Murdock to out himself in court as Daredevil, as a witness to all of the activity going on in the Northern Star, as well as the shipping and smuggling of military-grade weapons being provided for the AVTF officers. As things heat up, the people of New York all don on Daredevil masks to attack Fisk, and Daredevil and Jessica Jones take down more AVTF officers as well. And even during this, Fisk is beating the absolute crap out of these protesters like no one's business, in a way that is horrifyingly brutal. But this all culminates with Daredevil and his resistance as they all rally with the people, and it ultimately ends with Matt and Kingpin coming to a truce, where Kingpin is away from New York while Matt gets to have one last dinner with Karen Page before being taken to prison, which is where we end this season of Daredevil Born Again. A lot of fans and people have been theorizing that Matt would out himself as Daredevil in this season, which would lead to season 3 adapting the comic book storyline known as The Devil in Cell Block D, where similar circumstances lead to Matt being held behind bars. More than anything, the solid confirmation of this was quite a while ago when Mike Coulter posted on Instagram a series of photos which showed him as Luke Cage with Finn Jones and Krysten Ritter as Iron Fist and Jessica Jones respectively, all together filming for Born Again season 3. And even prior to this post as well, there were already set photos of the three of them together, and they're still currently shooting right now as well. In a now deleted photo shows Luke Cage, Deborah Ann Woll as Karen Page, and Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in a prison jumpsuit and with a grown-out beard. So this outcome was already set in stone, even if it was spoiled. Which makes me think, what is going to transpire in season 3 as we see the return of Luke Cage in the final moments of this finale, where he says he's done working for Mr. Charles and can now be with Jessica and their daughter Danielle again. We also see on Mr. Charles' end that his new agent for hire is none other than Benjamin Poindexter, aka Bullseye. A lot of people had speculated that Mr. Charles working for Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, that this could potentially set up some Dark Avengers sort of element, as in the comics, Bullseye masquerades as the Dark Avengers version of Hawkeye. So maybe later on in some other new Avengers or Thunderbolts sequel, Wilson Bethel's Bullseye could be roped into the theatrical side of things, which is something I wouldn't entirely oppose, because the character of US Agent, played by Wyatt Russell, was first introduced during the Falcon and Winter Soldier series and is now in the theatrical side of the MCU with Thunderbolts and now Avengers Doomsday. So I don't entirely discount this theory, or many others have said this direction. Poindexter going with Mr. Charles means that he's going to take on a mercenary-like role in the comics. And Wilson Bethel has stated that he is returning for season 3 of Daredevil Born Again, and that he will be getting a new suit too. I'm really fascinated with how they are going to approach season 3 of Born Again, now that we have the Defenders coming back, with Heather Glenn becoming the new Muse, and what even seems to be from some leaked set photos for the filming of season 3, that Vincent D'Nofrio is going to return as the Kingpin and he's going to be sporting a beard. And most importantly is whether or not Matt Murdock will come out of prison, and whether or not Karen Page and the rest of the Defenders will try and find some loophole that can allow for Matt to be freed despite him outing himself as Daredevil. There appears to be a lot of potential moving pieces for the next season. Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is a roller coaster ride that delivers from start to end. The action, story, and characters all work in tandem with each other to create a cohesive and well-done narrative for the man without fear. And where they take us in season 3 and beyond has me excited to see what's in store for the future of Daredevil. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, as it shows your support. Please click the bell notification icon to be immediately notified of when videos on this channel go live. Till then, take care and see you all on the next video.